The White House says a Trump-Xi meeting is scheduled for next week. Could the world's two biggest economies see a trade war breakthrough? Find out what Taiwan wants to achieve at this year's APEC Summit in South Korea.
我将善用这一次代表赖总统出席 APEC 经济领袖会议的机会，积极的与各 APEC 的会员的领袖代表以及企业界的代表交流。
Taiwan's been shut out of the UN Climate Summit, but that's not stopping its leaders from speaking up. Plus, a Taiwanese island located a short distance from China is drawing domestic tourists. Find out why. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Betty Chan. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping are set to meet next week in South Korea during the annual APEC Summit. That's according to the White House. It comes as another round of U.S.-China trade talks is due to take place in Malaysia, with both countries saying they want to reach a deal. Leslie Liao has more.
It's official. The leaders of the world's two top superpowers will meet next Thursday. U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping will hold in-person talks. The White House says they'll happen on the sidelines of this year's APEC Summit in South Korea.
On Thursday morning local time, President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with President Xi of the People's Republic of China before departing to return home to Washington, D.C.
This comes at a time when the U.S. and China are trying to hash out a trade deal amid tensions fueled by tit-for-tat export restrictions and tariffs. There are concerns on the Washington side over China's monopoly on the processing of critical rare earth minerals used in everything from smartphones to military weapons. But here in Taipei, there are worries that Trump may make concessions over Taiwan to get a better deal. China claims Taiwan as its territory despite never controlling it. And the U.S. supports Taiwan's self-defense through arms sales and bilateral cooperation. The big question for Taiwan is, will the U.S. president turn his back on Taipei to win favor with China? Earlier this week, Trump tried to downplay that possibility.
I think we're going to get along very well as it pertains to Taiwan and others. Now, that doesn't mean it's not the apple of his eye, because probably it is. But I don't see anything happening. We have a very good trade relationship.
TaiwanPlus reached out to Taiwan's foreign ministry for comment, and officials there say they're monitoring any new developments between the U.S. and China. At the same time, they say they're looking to deepen Taiwan's relationship with Washington to ensure that Taipei's interests are protected. Howard Zhang and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
The APEC Leaders Week begins in just a few days. Taiwan's representative says he'll use the opportunity to strengthen exchanges with other economies. But with China confirming Chinese President Xi Jinping's attendance, the question is, will Beijing push back? Cadence Garanta reports.
Global leaders will travel to South Korea next week for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. U.S. President Donald Trump, Chinese President Xi Jinping, as well as a delegation from Taiwan will all be there, meaning the forum may be a significant one.
Because there is such a siege really going on from the Trump administration in terms of withdrawing from multilateral forums like APEC, this has really heightened the importance of this effort to bring together leaders from around the Asia-Pacific and to focus on kind of the old agenda of economic globalization, of free trade. This is the classic APEC agenda. And so I think we could see drama that APEC is not used to.
For Taiwan, APEC's Economic Leaders Week, which begins on Monday, is an opportunity to strengthen ties with some of its trade partners and emphasize its importance to the global economy. It comes as China, which views Taiwan as part of its territory and protests its participation in international organizations, continues to try to isolate it. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te has laid out several goals for the forum, including this.
台湾致力强化经济韧性，希望和各国携手合作，持续促进区域经贸发展。我们要让世界知道， 台湾在强化产业自主与经济安全的同时，持续打造自由、公平、受法治保障以及可预期的经贸投资环境，并推动多元伙伴合作。
Taiwan participates under the name Chinese Taipei and does not send its president due to political sensitivities and objections from China. Instead, it sends a representative on the president's behalf. This year, that's Lin Xinyi, Lai's senior advisor and the chairman of government-backed venture capital firm Taiwania Capital.
我将善用这一次代表赖总统出席 APEC 经济领袖会议的机会，积极的与各 APEC 的会员的领袖代表以及企业界的代表交流，展现台湾是国际社会当中良善、可信赖，而且负责任的伙伴。
One expert said Taiwan may especially want to talk to officials from the U.S.
我们的优先的目标当然是，如果说可以刚好在这个地方遇到美方的关税谈判的代表，那我们会希望抓住这个机会，在场边看有没有可能在针对我们现在跟美国的关税问题还有包括所谓的半导体2+2条款的这个问题，能够做深入的持续的对话。
Taiwan will also be closely watching an expected meeting between Trump and Xi. Both leaders are now confirmed to be attending the forum, but while the U.S. says a meeting is set, China has yet to confirm it. The talks will likely focus on trade, but Trump has suggested the two could also discuss Taiwan. And Taiwan's foreign ministry says it will be paying close attention. So Taiwan has a lot to look out for at this year's APEC and is aiming for some big goals for both its delegation and its role in the global economy. Klein Wong and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
The Chinese Communist Party has wrapped up one of its most important meetings of the year, with party documents pushing for China to become a technological powerhouse. But with slowing economic growth and concerns about cross-strait tensions, many are looking to the upcoming Trump-Xi meeting for what's next. Chris Goring reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping closes out one of the Communist Party's key meetings of the year, the fourth plenum in Beijing. The party issued recommendations to bolster China's technological capacity, an aim for higher quality growth in the years ahead. The weeks before the meeting saw political purges in the military, with 9 generals expelled, including the country's second highest ranking general, He Weidong, replaced by Xi loyalist Zhang Shengming.
所以高阶将领这个被更换，代表了习近平在这方面呢这个有绝对的权威。我想这个是他要给全世界给中国这个人民呢最重要的讯号。
The meeting sets the tone for the country's next 5-year economic plan, to be finalized next spring. China wants independence from countries like the U.S. in critical technologies like chips and AI. But those lofty goals come as the country experiences slowing economic growth, a struggling real estate sector, and falling exports. That's due in large part to U.S. tariffs. Those trade tensions will be front and center at a meeting between China's Xi and U.S. President Donald Trump in South Korea next week. Trump will arrive in Asia this weekend ahead of the ASEAN and APEC summits, where regional partners have their own concerns.
Southeast Asian countries that may not necessarily be formally aligned with the U.S. They also see the United States as a vital economic partner, but also an important security partner and counterweight to China in their neighborhood. There will be a lot of interest on whether the U.S. and China can hammer out some kind of truce and a sustainable trade deal.
Trade tensions have escalated in recent weeks, with China issuing export controls on key rare earth minerals used in chips and weapon systems, and the U.S. threatening new 100% tariffs on China. In Taiwan, some worry that Washington might soften or recalibrate its stance on Taipei to clinch a China trade deal, even as Beijing steps up military pressure across the Taiwan Strait. But local experts say that if China wants to become the world's leading tech powerhouse, cross-strait peace remains key.
它还是需要很多来自台湾的高科技产品譬如说这个半导体这个中国也必须考虑到，如果它要在这几年内对美国取得优势，反而呢跟台湾维持相对正常的贸易关系，而不是攻打台湾，对它来讲是比较重要的。
Now, all eyes turn to South Korea, where a decision by the two leaders could have wide-ranging consequences. Joseph Wu and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Japan's new Prime Minister Takaichi Sanae has given her first policy speech since taking office, pledging to boost defense spending earlier than planned.
Our nation must take the initiative in radically strengthening its defense capabilities. To this end, we will act to bring forward the implementation of the 2% of GDP defense spending level within the current financial year set out in the National Security Strategy in conjunction with the supplementary budgetary measures.
The original target was fiscal 2027. On the foreign policy front, Takaichi promised to work with the U.S. to raise deterrence ahead of the meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump next week. And she spoke of the challenges from neighbors, including China, but said that Tokyo must build a stable and constructive relationship with Beijing through dialogue. The new leader of Taiwan's main opposition, Kuomintang, has affirmed the importance of U.S.-Taiwan ties. Zheng Li-wen was responding to a congratulatory message from American Institute in Taiwan director Raymond Green after winning last week's KMT chair election. It comes amid concern over how her victory could affect U.S.-Taiwan relations due to her support for closer ties with China. In her response, Zheng said that cooperation between her party and the AIT, the U.S.'s de facto embassy here, plays a key role in maintaining peace in the Taiwan Straits. A new report from research group IORG says thousands of Taiwanese people took part in Beijing-backed religious activities in China last year. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council says these activities are part of China's United Front efforts. To find out how religious activities could be weaponized politically, our reporter Alan Liu spoke with You Zhihao, co-director of IORG, which analyzes Taiwan's information environment.
Your report shows in 2024, about 16,000 Taiwanese people took part in religious activities in China. How do you view this number?
We parsed through some 7,000 articles published by China Taiwan Net, 中国台湾网, which is a website run by the Taiwan Affairs Office under the State Council in the People's Republic of China. And the numbers show that there's two peaks. One is around March and one is around October. Especially for October, it's due to what's called Mazu Yuhua Sheng Tian, the becoming of gods of the Mazu goddess, which is a sort of a special day for the Mazu folk religion. So it means that, of course, China's propaganda only shows what's favorable for China. So we could reasonably assume that there's a lot more so-called exchange activities that are unreported by these state media reports. And we're trying to assess the risk that this poses to Taiwanese, not just national security, but also Taiwanese culture and Taiwanese identity.
Like you mentioned, Beijing uses religious exchanges as a tool for political propaganda. What do you think is the actual impact on Taiwanese people?
So we did observe those two, let's say, those two sides of Chinese propaganda. On the one side, it claims that between Taiwan's people and people in China, we have so-called common values. These gods are all Chinese gods. And then Taiwanese people are longing to go back to the so-called motherland to find our roots, so to speak. On the other side, the Chinese propaganda attacks the current Taiwanese government for trying to sever that tie using politics, right? Using manipulation in politics. In terms of the actual impact, this is really difficult to assess because from the Taiwan side, we actually encourage healthy cultural exchanges between Taiwan and China, right? This is not Taiwan is a free country. We're a democracy, and we want to make friends with people around the world. So, but we cannot overlook the risk.
United Front work is usually subtle and hard to detect. What do you think Taiwan as a democracy can do to counter China's United Front work in religion?
But we need to understand the contemporary China a lot better. the China under the rule of Chinese Communist Party. If we were to engage with China and Chinese communities with that knowledge, there's less risk of us being influenced without us knowing. Both civil society and governments are responsible for raising awareness and raising the literacy on China. And of course, strengthening the legal frameworks. These are not partisan issues in our eyes. These are common issues. These are national issues that needs cooperation from all parties.
That was IORG co-director You Zhihao. October 24th marks the 80th anniversary of the United Nations founding. Born from the ashes of World War II, the body's future now hangs in a balance as it navigates wars, governance issues, and a funding crisis. Ai-Chi reports.
The world's largest international organization is turning 80. Founded in 1945 at the end of World War II, the United Nations' stated mission was to ensure global peace and security. Since then, it has overseen peacekeeping missions, delivered humanitarian aid, and mediated conflicts worldwide. But the world the UN was created to serve has changed dramatically. It now faces complex challenges from the Russian-Ukraine war.
None of these would have happened if Putin had not started this full-scale aggression, full-scale war.
As President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly emphasized, from the very beginning, Russia has been and remains open to negotiations to address the root causes of the conflict.
To the devastating conflict in Gaza.
No, we are not part of a ceasefire monitoring mechanism. Our focus in Gaza currently is on humanitarian assistance.
These conflicts have tested the UN's role in global peace governance and raised doubts about how much it can really do. Uncertainty that's pushed countries to look after their own interests by striking deals outside the UN and looking for quick workarounds.
If we get this contagion effect where countries follow each other outside of the United Nations and create ad hoc processes where they're going to agree, then we really sort of taken apart the international community that we developed and established in 1945.
The organization is also facing a funding crisis that's making it harder to operate at full capacity. That's due to the way it gets money to operate.
So the United Nations entirely depends on its functioning on its member states. So states have to essentially contribute a part of their GDP to the United Nations. This is what they've committed to doing, and this is what is expected of them every year.
But its biggest contributor, the US, has cut funding under President Donald Trump, who has called the UN ineffective and criticized its stance on immigration.
What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential.
The US now owes over $2.8 billion in unpaid contributions. And with budget cuts looming, the UN is already planning to reduce its peacekeeping force by 25%. The UN's problems don't stop there. Demands to address long-standing power imbalances within the organization are another source of pressure. Top-level decision-making, including at the Security Council, is dominated by 5 major powers: the US, UK, France, China, and Russia. This has prompted smaller, less powerful countries to speak out.
A comprehensive reform is needed in the United Nations, especially in the Security Council. In fact, the world is bigger than 5. We need to democratize the decision-making procedure at the UN.
Calls for reforms include those around Taiwan's role in the UN. The country has been excluded from all UN bodies that require recognized statehood since 1971. That year, the seat for China changed hands from the Republic of China, Taiwan's official name, to the People's Republic of China. But over the past 3 decades, a movement has grown to bring Taiwan back into the fold. It includes everything from measures of support from diplomatic allies to rallies held at the UN General Assembly each year. Amid these pressures, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has called reform crucial and launched an initiative to modernize the organization. But while there is hope that the UN's role in maintaining world order can endure, the road to meaningful change could be long and difficult. Patrick Chen and Aichi for TaiwanPlus.
Ahead of the UN Climate Summit COP30, Taiwan's 5th annual domestic climate conference kicks off in Kaohsiung on Friday. Indigenous initiatives to rebuild the human-nature connection are taking center stage. Irene Lin was there.
The 5th gathering of Taiwan's annual climate summit, COP5, is kicking off Friday in southern Taiwan. The exhibition brings public and private sectors together to showcase how they're helping Taiwan to reach its sustainability goals. Although Taiwan remains excluded from international climate organizations, it subscribes to the UN standards and aims to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050. A key topic opening the event is the indigenous community's knowledge and endeavors to maintain a symbiotic relationship between humans and the environment. One of the panel speakers tells of their initiative, which has been working with the Forestry Agency to restore their historical forests and stop illegal logging, all the while bringing back indigenous farming methods and creating income in eco-friendly ways.
今天原住民呢，应该要知道说时代不一样，21世纪现在是科技的时代，我们也要保存自己的文化，但是我们自己文化怎么去结合现代的知识，应用在我们的生活，创造更新的绿色经济。
Another discusses how indigenous knowledge and autonomy should be enlisted in preventing natural disasters, taking the example of the Fatayan village in eastern county Hualien, which was devastated by flash floods caused by a breached natural dam in September.
他们从原来的母语去理解这个空间，所以他们就会知道哪里是高地，哪里是低地，所以也知道怎么去逃难。这就是原住民的在地知识，然后透过 部落原有的社会关系网络能够在这一次被看到，所以这个我就是要讲的很重要。国家的政策，还有国家的执行的单位，怎么跟原有的社会关系更紧密的对话跟连结。
This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, which galvanizes the global mission to combat climate change. Taiwan was not allowed to be a party to that agreement, but that doesn't stop the country from taking on its goals. Taiwan's COP5 also coincides with the United Nations Climate Summit, COP30, that's taking place in Brazil this November. As Taiwan continues to work toward its carbon-free goal, indigenous representatives at the exhibition today say there needs to be more collaboration between villages and authorities to ensure true climate justice. Chris Ma and Irene Lin in Kaohsiung for TaiwanPlus.
One of Taiwan's furthest outposts, a tiny islet within view of China, is welcoming Taiwanese visitors to experience a slice of military history. John Van Tres reports.
A boat packed with tourists approaches the coast of a tiny islet with a big story to tell. This is Dadan Island, less than a square kilometer in size, but crucially less than 4 kilometers from the Chinese coast. It's part of the offshore Kinmen group of islands, one of the furthest bits of land governed by Taipei. Dadan Island fought off a communist Chinese attack in 1950. And with China still in clear view just over there across the water, it's been standing guard ever since, in case Beijing ever again tries to assert its claims over Taiwan with force. A visit here leaves a deep impression on tourists.
当过兵的感想啊，感想就是认为如果那时候来这边当兵的话，真的是蛮辛苦、蛮累的，然后有那种两岸对敌的那种紧张感。
Until 2019, this was a place closed off to all but the military, and it's still under close guard. But today, Taiwanese nationals are allowed to tour the bunkers and other sites. These include a propaganda broadcast station and a slogan painted in characters big enough to be seen from China calling for unification, though of course not on communist China's terms. Though closed again during COVID, the island reopened to tourists last year. 25,000 people have visited since.
这里是一个就是很前线的地方，然后一定有它的历史的痕迹在，然后来到这边可以体会当时我们不知道的一些体验，就是当时的一些战况啊什么的。然后我们的导游也跟我们讲了很多这里当时的故事，所以让我们更深入的了解金门的一些文化。
Local officials say tourism on the island is about learning from history and hoping for a peaceful future.
金门县是唯一有打过巷战的地方，所以我们知道战争无情，和平无价。我们透过这样的一个包装，我们能够让整个大南岛的开放是一种和平的一种象征。那过去就是历史了，历史已经过去了，我们展望的是更好的一个未来。所以透过这样的一个营地的整理，我们希望把这样的精神传递下去。 一个普世的价值就是一个和平。
But tension has never left this place. China regularly sends its Coast Guard ships into the waters around here. It's a cat and mouse game that sees Taiwanese ships sent out to chase them away. And the island even featured in a Taiwanese drama imagining a full-on Chinese invasion. From here, new construction like this airport on the Chinese skyline shows just how close an attack could come from. On Dadan Island, even with its tourists, the story of Taiwan-China tensions isn't just the past. Leon Lien and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, today we give you a glimpse of the contemporary art fair in Paris. I'm Betty Chen. Take care and see you next time.